Hello, Horizons. This is John Legend here, and I am truly honored to join you to talk about the Fair Chance to Advance initiative from Jobs for the Future. 1 in 3 Americans lives with a record, and nearly 1 in 4 of those with records are unemployed. These aren't just statistics. They represent millions of people being denied the chance to rebuild, to contribute, and to thrive. For too many people, the door to opportunity stays shut long after they've served their time. They're trying to move forward, but they're met with closed doors and unanswered applications. But it doesn't have to be this way. Fair chance hiring is one of the most powerful tools we have, because when people can work, they can support their families, contribute to their communities, and build something better for themselves and for all of us. This is how we create stronger businesses, safer neighborhoods, and a more inclusive economy. And that's part of why I founded Free America, to change the systems that make it harder for people with records to move forward. But this work takes all of us: artists, employers, educators, policymakers. We all have a role to play. And I'm proud to introduce the next story, featuring my dear friend, Susan Burton of A New Way of Life, who, along with other powerful leaders, is helping to build a future where fair chance hiring is the norm, not the exception.
I started A New Way of Life because no one would help formerly incarcerated women. They need to have housing that is safe. They need support to get their children back. They need jobs. They need everything that you need. Oh my God, look at you. Oh. Hi. Say hi. Hi. So you got all your certifications, or you got many certifications. You got your AA in science. What's happened with you actually being able to get work?
It's been a struggle to get tech jobs willing to give me that opportunity.
I never had a problem having a job in prison. At 6 cents, 8 cents, 10 cents, 14 cents an hour. And those same companies that are employing people in prison won't employ them when we come out of prison. We need partners. We need progressive thinkers, progressive doers to come along and make changes with us. I understand the culture of the country that people have sort of like leaned into, the fear, the unforgiveness that's in people's hearts. But when you have so many people in this country who have been incarcerated, you gotta rethink that, even if it's for your capitalism budget. I think no one of us can do all that needs to be done to repair the harms of mass incarceration. I believe it takes all of us to do our part.
Our session this afternoon is Fair Chance, Fair Play, a future where everyone can advance. Please welcome back to the Horizon stage, Lucretia Murphy, Vice President of the Center for Justice and Economic Advancement at Jobs for the Future. Joining Lucretia is Susan Burton, founder of A New Way of Life Reentry Project. Darvell Hutchins, Vice President of Impact and Culture for the New Orleans Saints and Pelicans. And Molly Lasagna, Senior Strategic Officer of Incarcerated Learner Initiatives at Ascendium Philanthropy.
Good.
I'm great. Well, thank you all. We're so honored to be here on our Horizons main stage to talk about Fair Chance to Advance. I'm going to kick right into the questions and lead off with that great Susan Burton quote to the great Susan Burton. So, Susan, you said, no one person can repair the harms of mass incarceration. It takes all of us to do our part. So I'd love to ask each of you, as you think about that, what is your part individually in the work that you do, and also the sector? So Susan, I'll start with you.
So my part has been creating spaces, places for women to be able to return to be safe, to be trained or retrained, and to launch into their lives, a different life than they had before. Also, it is to help them to understand their leadership qualities and to support other leaders in the field to grow and be all they can be. When I first started A New Way of Life, and that's some 25 years ago, there was no space and nobody believed in the potential of me or any of us that were coming home. So we are creating opportunities for formerly incarcerated people to lead, to be great employees, to be great moms, and to succeed. That's what makes our community safe, Lucretia. It's not more police. It's not harsh penalties. It's giving people an opportunity to be a part of our society, an opportunity to be all they can be.
And Molly, I wonder if you can go next to talk about your work as a philanthropist and how you see that contributing to this overall safety and re-engagement.
Sure. My work as a philanthropist. So I work at Ascendium, which is a sort of big national post-secondary education and workforce training funder that is oriented towards a North Star of upward mobility for learners from low-income backgrounds. And when our board of directors was thinking about, okay, under that umbrella of learners from low-income backgrounds, who do we think are the populations, communities of students who are furthest from the opportunity? They came up with a set of focused populations, one of which is learners with a history of incarceration. And so I have the great good fortune to sort of build and shepherd a theory of change in service of that population of students, that population of learners. And I think one of the things we've learned over the last 5-6 years of funding in this space is that a degree is not going to catapult you over the collateral consequences of incarceration, right? So you will come out of prison having earned an entire credential, an entire degree, and there will still be policy barriers to accessing meaningful employment. There will still be legislative barriers. There will be cultural barriers for this population of students. And so when we think about how to invest, again, oriented towards that North Star, not just of degree attainment, but upward mobility, it's sort of not enough to think about just getting these students into the door of a college program. It's not even enough to think about getting them through a college program. It's helping put them onto the path so that they can use that credential, that degree, for the opportunity to create generational wealth for their own families, for the opportunity to access, lifetime autonomy and success. So that's sort of how we're thinking about it in this space is, again, it sort of takes all of us out here in the free world, the institutions of higher ed and the community-based organizations and the state agencies, all working in tandem, kind of all speaking the same language so that we can build these really wide, welcoming opportunity pathways for this population of students.
And I think what you and Susan have both laid down for us is that what we're doing is really recreating home. Like, how does home need to look so that people can really thrive when they get here? And I wonder, since we're in your hometown, Darvell, if you want to talk a little bit about your role as an employer, and you've got a pretty robust network of employment opportunities under Gail Benson's holding. How do you see your work as an employer in kind of creating these opportunities for people when they come home?
Absolutely. I have the distinct pleasure of being able to work for Gail Marie Benson's management company, and under that portfolio, we have large brands such as the New Orleans Pelicans, the New Orleans Saints, Birmingham Squadron, and some other businesses. And when I think about the sports team, we're New Orleans based, right? And we occupy space within the city. We know that sports is a unifier. Like, a lot of people come to the games, and when you come to the games, it's really about having fun, really about having a great experience, but I do feel like we have a social responsibility to make sure that we understand the needs of our community when we talk about impact work and how we can make a real difference. And so when I found out the statistic that we have over 1.1 million people in Louisiana that are just as impacted, I started to think about, well, what can we do with this large platform, with these large brands, right, that our players have really big a really big presence within the community to really make a difference and to amplify the voices of those who've been just as impacted and really bring community together, government officials together to really think about how do we remove the barriers to access and how do we even resolve for getting these folks back into the workplace, because we realize that there's not a shortage of talent, there's a shortage of opportunity. And so what I realized in that moment is, Darvell, you don't have to be the expert when it comes to those who've been just as impacted. You can bring other folks to the table who are really the leading experts in this space, such as JFF, right? But you can serve as the convener for bringing these folks together. And so I've been able to use the platform to galvanize and bring people together for the larger good.
Yep. And Darvell just hosted an amazing event at the Smoothie King Center last Friday, kind of bringing together the community leaders in New Orleans with employers and policymakers to talk about exactly this. How do you create that fair chance ecosystem in your community? And one of the things we want to tie it to, and we heard about this in the earlier panel, is the importance of a quality job. Yeah. And that people with records shouldn't have to be satisfied with just any job. That they also should have those opportunities for real quality jobs that allow them and their family members to thrive. And so we can go backwards this way, and I'll start with Molly. How do you think, Molly, about your work, and you touched on this a little bit,
as a philanthropist,
getting to the quality job piece?
Yeah, wow, what a good question. I mean, one thing I would say, this is gonna sound kind of nerdy and in the weeds, but it's my responsibility to say it, which is that there is Fair Chance to Advance, initiatives like Fair Chance to Advance are state-based plays, right? So we're trying to think about how do we engage all the right players at the state level, because of what we know about this population of students, because every Department of Correction is its own ecosystem at the state level, because students within the Departments of Correction, tend to move around within a state. They're incarcerated over here, they release and come to college over here when they get out in the free world. And so sort of the state level intervention feels to us like the right place to start. The challenge is that we're not keeping good data. This is the nerdy part. We're not keeping great data on this population of students. So everything from, within a college's data system, there's oftentimes not a way to know whether or not a student is in your prison program or your free world program. All the way up to, at the state level, corrections data is often not incorporated into these state level data systems. And so I'm saying all of that to say, it's really hard to tell a compelling data story about what's going on with this population of students. How did they get to prison? How did they find a post-secondary program while they were in prison? What happened upon release? And so I think, one of the big challenges and opportunities in an initiative such as Fair Chance to Advance is to really try to, again, think about who are all the folks at state agencies and institutions that are keeping data on this population, and then how do we put all of that data into conversation so that, again, we could tell a really compelling story, so from incarceration to graduation and beyond into meaningful employment. How do we figure out how to tell that story?
Right, so important to have the numbers to add to that story. And I wonder, Darvell, if you want to talk a little bit about kind of the work that you all do through Gail Benson Holdings, kind of the diversity of the companies that are there, and how you all are thinking about moving to the quality job outcomes.
Absolutely. Well, our journey with hiring individuals who've been just as impacted started off with our dealerships. Several years ago, we had an HR manager really ask the question of if we can hire someone who had a record. And so they posed the question to our legal team. It was an opportunity for us to really think about, well, why wouldn't we? And the person that had applied for the job actually came out of Angola and had more certifications than anyone who was currently on our staff in the dealerships.
Typical.
And we were like, well, he's qualified, he has the skills, he has the knowledge, he has the ability to do the job, let's hire him on. And we hired him, and when I say he killed it, he was exceptional. He was one of the best employees that we had in our dealerships, and it really opened our our employers and our executives up to really thinking about what would it look like to build out a program where we can bring individuals who've been just as impacted into the Mercedes dealerships and to be able to have a chance at a career, and they can make over $200,000 a year as technicians, right? And so it opened up that possibility, and since then we brought in several, folks who have come in and they've done exceptionally well. So now we're thinking about, it's not enough to just get them in the door, right? We know that they have the skills and the knowledge and ability. How do we make sure that we're taking care of the person that's coming through the door, right? What challenges may they be dealing with on a mental or physical level that we need to attend to, and what does that support look like? And so when we started having those conversations, it was important for us to really come to JFF and say, okay, let's start the conversation about what does support look like? You have a pulse on the community. We want to build something out that's robust, but also that meets their needs, and also help us think about what does development look like really across the board when it comes to tapping into this workforce and this talent. So not only is that happening at our dealerships, we're now looking at our corporate realty firm. We're looking at, getting folks into the sports space who have been just as impacted, and just really being able to build something out that's robust, but also something that's sustainable.
Yep. I love the fact that the question that your team asked was, why wouldn't we? Opposed to, well, why would we? And I think that orientation really allows for people to thrive.
Absolutely.
When they get there. So Susan, would you like to talk a little bit about the work that you all do to get people to quality jobs, and maybe also tease out for folks the different conditions and circumstances that women face as they make that transition?
Yes. So women are usually primary caregivers of their families. So there's the mother part, and I learned so much today on the percentages, how earlier in the panel. But women have to come home, get their families together, children back, be safe, and get employment. Like Antoinette, she has so many certifications, but she's looking for an opportunity to get in the door where she can utilize those certifications. And we have a workforce development team, and we've actually expanded nationally through our Safe Housing Network, which is in 20 states, 36 cities that we are housing women in, and also implementing our workforce development model. And we want and need quality jobs. And not only do we want and need them, we deserve them.
Absolutely.
We've worked hard. We've went back to school. We've had training. So, we're ready to work and be employed and be a greater and better part of our communities. But I think the main barrier is women bringing their families back together and holding that down while looking for employment, quality employment that's going to allow them to have a family and save for their family and have a future and build generational wealth like all of us want to build.
Yeah, that's all so important. And I wonder if we can take some time, I'm just going to tie this into our overall theme of being brave. And in a lightning round, maybe ask each of you if you want to think about what is the next brave step. I think that there is certainly a continuum of where we are in the country, but we're at a stage now where, I have a colleague who's currently incarcerated who's working, and people are getting hired in quality jobs, and we've got a national funder that's thinking about really big swings. So we've definitely made progress. From when Susan started A New Way of Life, there was no bipartisan support. So we've definitely made progress. So I wonder if we can leave the audience then with what's the next brave thing that you think is waiting for us? I'll go with Molly first.
Ooh, how much time do we have? Okay.
We've got time.
Great. We've got all day. Perfect. So I think, a thing that I want to say about being brave, for those of us who are close to the resources, close to the wealth, close to the decision making, is that the solutions that we fund have to be as big as the problems that are presenting themselves. And the way that we get to those solutions is to listen to the folks who are on the ground doing the work. So if you're in this room and you're a person with access to wealth, if you're a funder or attached to a funder, I just encourage you to think as much as you can about creating space to bring your grantees together, to talk to each other, to talk to you, to help you understand how big and creative the solutions can be. I mean, we're only limited by our own imaginations. But we don't have the answers. Yeah. We're not on the ground doing the work. We don't have the answers. And so I'm really grateful to work at an organization where we support formerly incarcerated leaders to sort of lead the way and help us set the strategy. Some of those leaders are in this room right now today, which is so great. So I think that's what I would say is just spend more time than you think you have to listening.
Yeah, I love that. Darvell, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I would say for me, I think the nature of my role requires bravery. When I stepped into this role, I was primarily internal only, primarily focused on inclusion and equity, right, within the space. And I was having active conversations with our C-suite about really what it would look like to have our sports teams really doing systems change level work. And what I realized in that moment is that, my role was so new to the organization that it required a lot of education and like really helping people to understand the statistics around this work. And I realized in that moment that people can't accept what they don't understand, right? And it's not that they don't want to accept it, but if you can get them to understand really why the work is important, the risk of not doing the work, it really opens the conversation to what's possible. And so in year 2, my work started to focus a little bit externally, and I was able to dabble into what it would look like to bring community together, to serve as a unifier, doing community safety series and doing work around food insecurity and hunger, and really delving in a little bit deeper to where it's now I'm doing work more external. I think 70% of my work right now is more external focus around systems change, and it's bringing people into the conversation, helping them to understand when you assign KPIs to the outcomes of the work, I think that it's more digestible. And so for me, being bravery is not only having KPIs, not only baking systems level work into our strategic plan, but it's making sure that I'm weaving in and educating leadership along the way. And I think having that Second Chances Summit was bravery, right? Because we had never done anything like that before, but to be able to have a summit that focused on educating and providing an understanding of what's happening in the policy space, right? What happens when organizations come together and they, band together around this issue of removing the barriers, but also to be able to host an expungement clinic on site where we brought over 20 attorneys on site to expunge records. And so there were people who left transformed, and we provided, we paid the legal fees so they can get that service provided to them. And so we had never done anything like that before, but it took 3 years of educating our leadership about what that work looks like, the importance of the work. And I think the next step is really having some formal partnerships to take the work even further than we've already done.
Yeah, that's great. And Susan, we'll close with you.
Yeah, I'm going to try to wrap this up, and I hope it makes sense to everyone. But to continue to see the abundant possibilities and opportunities for people as they come back into our communities, to see the abundant opportunity for folks that want to employ or start businesses and what have you, but not to shrink myself in the face of obstacles or a lack of opportunity, but to just grow abundantly in that space and make it happen. Yes.
There's a great quote that I listen to sometimes when I feel nervous that talks about that now is not the time to get small, it's the time to be immense. And I think that that's the piece, like abundance has to be what we demand if that's what we want to see. So I wonder if you will all indulge us. We have a surprise for Mrs. Susan Burton. So. So, Mrs. Burton served as one of our icons because she is an icon of justice.
Absolutely.
And B. Mike Odom, who is an artist who's here, did this piece for her. And Ms. Burton is recently retired from A New Way of Life, an organization that has been a beacon for many of us, me personally and professionally. to see that work thrive. So we, from the Center for Justice and Economic Advancement, would like to give our flowers to Mrs. Burton. And thank you.
That is so cool.
I love that.
So it's such a great saying. Thank you so much, Lucretia, and I want to thank Jobs for the Future. The conference has been just electric, hasn't it, everyone? It's been
Yes.
great. But the words on the poster says, mistakes belong in the past. We belong in the future, and that's all of us. We all belong in the future, making our communities and our folks safer, better, and abundant.
Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to our amazing panelists. Thank you all.